In January of 1970, thousands arrived at the Chabad headquarters in New York to mark 20 years of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's leadership. The Rebbe conducted a public gathering, delivering inspirational addresses punctuated with spirited song. The atmosphere was electrifying, and the hours flew by. But a group of visitors from Israel began to fret. It would be inappropriate to leave the hall while the Rebbe was addressing the vast crowd. But if they did not leave shortly, they would not make it to Kennedy Airport in time to catch their El Al flight back to the Holy Land. The Rebbe showed no sign of ending, and the Israeli visitors grew ever more anxious. Just then, the Rebbe decided to share an anecdote that involved his father-in-law and predecessor, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson. The year was 1927. Soviet citizens tiptoed in fear under communist rule. But for religious Jews, the oppression was paralyzing. Those caught teaching Judaism were imprisoned, exiled, or executed. It seemed it was all over for Judaism in Soviet Russia. But it wasn't. Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson stood against the tide. He single-handedly ran an underground network of Torah schools, and his religious emissaries spread across the Soviet territories. One night, he had to undertake a perilous operation that involved traveling to Moscow and meeting a foreign businessman under the heavy shadow of the Soviet secret police. Before making the trip, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak spent hours receiving individuals in private audience until late into the night. People poured out their sorrows and requested blessings and guidance. When the last visitor had left for the night, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak was left with just half an hour to himself before embarking on his journey to Moscow. Just then, his son-in-law, the future Rebbe, stepped into his office, expecting to find him exhausted from the audiences and preoccupied with his imminent departure into the Russian night. What he saw left him astonished. There was not a sign of the emotionally wrenching audiences, nor the faintest apprehension at having to visit Moscow in just a matter of minutes. Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak sat at his desk, concentrating on his work with complete tranquility, as if he had just began his day and had nothing else on his schedule that evening. In shock, the Rebbe exclaimed, "To such an extent?" Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak heard the cryptic question and replied with a story. The 13th century sage, Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet of Barcelona, was a busy man. He delivered 3 Torah lectures each day to men of intellectual brilliance. As if that were not enough, he devoted hours each day to his medical practice. He spent many hours a week composing a vast body of responsa of Torah law, and he never missed his daily stroll. How did he do it? He regarded each segment of time as a world of its own. When Rabbi Shlomo treated a patient, medicine was his entire universe. When he taught Torah, nothing existed outside the study hall. When he wrote responsa, he was exclusively quill and thought. And when he took his daily stroll, it was leisurely and relaxing from the very first moment. That, concluded Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak, is called being successful with time. Back to the hasidic gathering in 1970. The Rebbe finished his tale and turned to address his visitors from Israel. You keep glancing at your watches. You still need to pack, say goodbye, and catch your flight. And you cannot concentrate on this gathering. But you can, if you just consider the truth. That God creates the universe anew at every moment. And your task is to devote each portion of time to its intended purpose. Your LL plane has not been created yet. Kennedy Airport does not yet exist. At the moment that you will need the plane or the airport, God will create it for you. Meanwhile, this moment has a purpose of its own. Use it fully.